Houston Mayor John Whitmire says he'll unveil his proposed budget Tuesday, and even as it includes a new deal with the police union giving officers more money, it'll be a balanced budget. I'm Craig Cohen. Today on Houston Matters, reaction to that police officers union agreement.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, you can't tackle life's big challenges if you let the little ones get you down. That's why on the first Monday of each month, we sweat the small stuff in a community moan session we call Houstonian Pet Peeves. Join in. Call or text 713-440-8870 or email talk@houstonmatters.org. Plus, the Rockets season is over and a first-round playoff loss. Does that make this year a success or a failure? We discuss. We'll start with the news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us. This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Good morning. Coming up this hour, your Houstonian pet peeves. And as we just heard, the Rockets season came to an end last night. We'll discuss. But first, Houston Mayor John Whitmire is poised to present his proposed budget for the city of Houston tomorrow. He says it will be a balanced budget that includes a new police contract announced Friday. Under the 5-year deal, Houston police officers would receive a 36.5% salary increase by 2030. That would cost the city about $832 million over that time, $67 million of it to be spent next year. Here's Mayor Whitmire announcing the deal Friday.
It's an exciting day to become the best paid first-year officers in the state of Texas. And we're not through. We have a 5-year contract, 10% across the board in the first year. I asked them to hand this out before we came in so you'll witness why I'm so excited and pleased for Houstonians and officers. 8% in 26, 6% in 27, 6% in 28, 6.5 in the 5th year for a total of 36.5% over 5 years. This is going to improve public safety. In any job, particularly when you are putting your life on the line, morale matters. And morale is good in HPD. But this is reaching all-time highs. They want to work for Mayor Whitmire.
The mayor also called it the best package in anyone's memory. Ken Neely is the first vice president of the Houston Police Officers Union. He spoke to our colleagues on Hello Houston on Friday.
Right now we have a little over 5,200 Houston police officers, and we'd kind of gone to a point where we had officers who were graduated from the Houston Police Academy, but leaving our department, going working for other agencies that surprisingly were making more in a yearly salary than our officers were making. Mayor Whitmire, and without the great help of our recently appointed Chief of Police, Noe Diaz, they saw that there was a shortage with our officers and also the financial compensation that they were receiving. So this has really been an epic impact on the recruiting that we'll be able to help make our first-year officers whose starting salary will now be $75,000 a year. We really believe that with this contract that was just announced, I think they'll be instrumental in getting more officers and more people to apply for our academy. For the size of Houston that it is and the square mileage that we encompass, we would love to have more officers. By the studies, they show we're about 1,200 short than what we need or would like to be.
Ken Neely, first vice president of the Houston Police Officers Union there. The new contract comes as the city faces a budget shortfall next year of at least $200 million, even after a deal in a long-standing drainage lawsuit and after more than 1,000 city employees accepted a retirement incentive program. The deal reached Friday came after negotiations held in secret with both the city and the union signing confidentiality agreements. Jason Oliver is a community organizer with the Community Safety Budget Coalition, an association of community and civil rights organizations in Harris County. He's also been active in budget discussions between community members and policymakers for several years. Jason, good morning.
Good morning, Craig. Thanks for having me.
Sure. We'll get a closer look at Mayor Whitmire's proposed budget when he announces it tomorrow. But based on the numbers he shared Friday for this deal with the Police Officers Union and what we know about how much HPD costs in the current budget, about 30% of the general fund, and more than $1 billion of the city's overall budget of $6.7 billion, what is your initial reaction to this proposed contract?
I am really anxious. I'm worried. Budgets are not a both-and scenario. So if we make this choice to put an extra $800 million on top of the billion that we're already spending on policing, and that money has to come from somewhere, and it's going to come from, our youth programming, our health department, our parks. So I'm really, really worried about that.
That said, of course, that's the entirety of the cost of this deal over the course of 5 years. So it sounds like just maybe $67 million, if I read correctly, in the next year's budget that he's going to propose.
We hear, but as we just were hearing about the overtime, right? The budget can be a little flexible when we're looking at certain departments. So while many departments right now, most except for police and fire, are facing a freeze and are probably going to shrink or are functionally shrunken, the city budget, right, can really balloon, and we have little control over it.
We heard there from the police union that the city doesn't have enough officers as it is, and that recruitment is a challenge, in particular because HPD salaries aren't competitive. Do you agree with that?
Houston, we hear this a lot. Usually there's a comparison to a city like Chicago, which has double the police officers we do with roughly the same population. But while I love Chicago, I don't think that anybody would use it as an example of a city that has been made safer by an abundance of police. So Houston is really on par with the national median. We're well above the state median in terms of officers. And then when you look at pay, there was a Chronicle report last year that showed that actually the police department has the highest overall pay. Usually people talk about the base salary, ignoring, overtime and union benefits and all that. But when you look at our overall pay, the Houston Police Department, higher than legal, higher than the mayor's office, anything, has the highest median take-home pay of any department in the city, which is kind of astonishing to me.
We also have this question of oversight, both civilian and internal. It's negotiated and spelled out in contracts like the one that apparently that they've agreed to.
Right.
What kind of civilian oversight do police in Houston currently have, and is it clear whether it will be strengthened at all by this contract?
It's hard to really say. We haven't seen the contract yet. Houston is a little different from cities like San Antonio or Austin, right? Other cities in Texas that do transparently negotiate this issue. So we don't see anything really before it goes to a vote, if we see it then, which is strange for such an important document in terms of our budget and policies. But what I'll say is misconduct or things like that, what we saw last time that the contract was being renewed, there was a big shooting that happened about a month before George Floyd was murdered. And there were 4 officers who, I remember Chief Acevedo said, if you don't have respect for life, you don't need to be on this force. And the Mayor Turner had spoken out against, the killing there as well. It was Nicholas Chavez. Those officers were reinstated about a month later, around the time that this union contract, right before this new union contract was reinstated. To my knowledge, those 4 officers were still on the force, right?
Now, that was 2020. A lot happens in 5 years. Some argue that, in fact, oversight and scrutiny on police, that those themselves are contributing factors to struggles to recruit and retain officers. What's your take on that?
Yeah, we also hear this about a struggle to recruit and retain, but the numbers to me don't really match up. So when you look at the police budget documents, you'll see that their recruitment in terms of the cadet graduating classes are usually around high 80%, right, in terms of filling their cadet classes. What we're going to see this fiscal year is actually lower because they did something unusual where they added a 6th cadet class. This had happened a few years ago in 2021 where we added it. Shortly afterward, Chief Fenner said, this doesn't really make sense. We're not able to fill this extra class. So we're actually going to cut that 6th class and focus on really filling the 5 classes that we do have because it's a waste of resources. Somehow we came back to that idea this fiscal year, and then we're really going to see a shortage in cadets because of that in the classes.
You mentioned that there are some cities that will negotiate union contracts like this in a more public way. There are others.
Houston's one of them, just not for police.
Not for police. And there are others that do this privately, that would argue that the only way to really get deals done is if there isn't that daily scrutiny or fighting it out in the press or however you want to define it.
Right.
But it sounds like, though, you would prefer to see this negotiated more publicly every time.
If you're telling me that a 36.7% increase over 5 years that is going to, swallow up more of our budget is a win for the city, you should really have that conversation in public, at the very least.
Houston voters backed Mayor Whitmire. Polls suggest they support his public safety agenda. He wants to invest in more officers. That will cost more money. What's the concern?
I don't think that public safety, it's police or nothing, and that's really the choice that we're often given when we're talking about public safety. But when you think about the question about our, say, Department of Neighborhoods, right, which is really going to face a shortage. I think we have 10 positions budgeted for an anti-gang office there that deals with youth. We say that youth are contributing to violent crime in this city, and yet, last I heard about 2 weeks ago, that division only had 5 people in it. So we're not investing in Hire Houston Youth was cut back last year. So even things as simple as making sure that our youth are occupied with jobs and programs to decrease violence, those things are being cut back on, and we're seeing an increased investment in policing. So I don't think it's an all or nothing, police or nothing. We have even 911 call takers. I have friends who are saying when you call 911, you end up having to wait so long, like it doesn't make sense. It's not helpful, right? Even before it gets to dispatch. So that's a thing that people have been asking council to invest in over the course of years that we're not seeing.
Is this, in the end, a question or a difference of philosophy that there should be, in some views, more attention paid, more money, and more personnel focused on ways to prevent instances where police would need to be called versus having more police to address those calls when, as you have already sort of stated, it can't be, in your view at least, a both-and scenario?
I think yes, but also I'm also advocating for better responses, right? Like I said, the 911 call takers, I want people to be able to call and have someone pick up within a reasonable time frame when they're calling 911, right? I don't want that to be a challenge for folks. So those types of interventions, those types of investments, the generators that we're hearing about that the city is talking about investing in because we don't have them in many of the places that we have for disasters during any kind of, that is really important that we need for the city. That's both preventative, but it's also really essential when we're dealing with any disasters. The number of people with a mental health indicator in our jail, right, or on our streets, those things, at least to me, it seems like those people are increasing, or at least people are feeling more concerned about that. If we invest in our health department and mental health resources, not just homeless outreach teams and police, but actual mental health clinicians, that will help us really address the problems in meaningful ways.
Jason Oliver is an organizer with the Harris County Community Safety Budget Coalition. Jason, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, you can't tackle life's big challenges if the little ones take you down. That's why on the first Monday of each month, we set aside time to sweat the small stuff. We call it Houstonian Pet Peeves. Get your gripe on at talk@houstonmatters.org or call or text 713-440-8870 and get ready to grumble as Houston Matters continues. This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. On the first Monday of each month, we set aside time on this program to sweat the small stuff in a conversation we call Houstonian Pet Peeves. We do it because you cannot tackle life's big challenges when the little ones get in the way. I am talking about those petty annoyances, those frustrations, those things in your life here in Houston that, they're just a little less than they could be. You can email your peeve now to talk@houstonmatters.org, or you can call or text us at 713-440-8870. Remember the ground rules: no swearing, no defaming. Otherwise, we encourage you to let loose. And as we peruse your peeves, we once again seek reaction from our champion complainers, Houston Chronicle op-ed editor Lisa Gray and Craig Lavati, public relations specialist at Public Content. Lisa, Craig, good morning.
Hey, Craig.
Good morning.
And once again, the number to call to join our group moan session, 713-440-8870. You can text us there too, or if you want me to read your peeve on the air, you can also email it to us at talk@houstonmatters.org. All right, I'm going to begin. I mentioned it before the show started.
When Craig goes
This
first.
is so frustrating. So last night, my St. Louis Blues were
St.
playing.
Louis.
Yeah, I know. I
was
know.
not where I thought you were
didn't
going,
think this
Greg.
was where. Well, you thought I was maybe going to go to a different Game 7.
Some other game.
We're going to
Yeah.
save that for later in the hour.
All right. All right.
But there was another Game 7 involving my favorite hockey team, St. Louis Blues. They were playing the Winnipeg Jets, and they were leading 3-1 with just a couple of minutes left. Gave up a goal, and at 6-on-5, the Jets had pulled their goalie and scored. And then the Blues gave up the tying goal with 2.2 seconds left in the game. And then they lost in double overtime, and their season is over. Ooh, it is. I understand, like a league record. It's the latest a game tying goal like that has ever been scored in regulation of a Game 7. Nobody's ever done that before, and of course it would happen to my Blues, and so I'm a little upset about it, just a tad.
Did you sleep?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but the consolation prize is you're surrounded by Rockets fans.
That's
who
true.
are feeling similar
Yes,
pain.
exactly.
know, so
Except
yeah.
a different kind of pain, because if we're being honest about it, the Rockets, it was never really close last night. Not
It's
really.
true. It was not.
And so
Yeah.
it's different.
It didn't feel
It's different.
snatched away.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we felt like we were lucky to be in Game 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Not lucky, but
I hate that
we worked
house
hard.
money feeling though
Yeah.
all the time. That
Yeah.
like gets really old. Where people are like, oh, they're playing with house money. They're playing with house money, and it's like, I want them to win.
right.
Like
Exactly.
I don't care about the moral victory of it.
And,
like,
and that thought creeped in just at the wrong
Yeah.
time. And so yeah, that's what's got me down. How about the two of you?
Lisa, you go.
All right, so I have a moral quandary.
Uh-oh.
This is good.
Yeah, okay, you know the Be Someone graffiti that used to be near downtown,
Sure.
sort of became a Houston
Classic
icon?
sign. I've got a poster of it.
I
in my,
miss it
my
now.
office,
You
yeah.
know, it's been replaced by some cryptocurrency, whatever. But it has reappeared alongside I-45 in Southeast Houston. Somebody, I don't know if it's the original Be Someone people or not, but they've started doing graffiti on billboards. And it's kind of great, and I kind of love it. It's charming. But this is my moral quandary. I'm all for rule of law. I spend a lot of time, professionally thinking about how do we, keep this, country, this city working.
I guess my big question
I feel
is,
bad to love it.
does it say something
I feel great to
about
hate
us?
it, but that's just me. So.
Does it
Yeah.
say something about us here in Houston that we attach that emotional connection to something like the Be Someone sign? Is it in lieu of something else that we don't have, that we don't point to and say, that's Houston?
Like the mountains or something, or a
Well, yeah.
skyline, or like something like that,
Exactly.
something fun. Like we have to you talk to an outsider, they're like, oh, that's your favorite thing. This
This is my point, yes.
strange graffiti on the train overpass.
You take what
Sweet.
you got, Craig.
Right.
And this
right.
is a little moment of grace,
If you
These billboards that would otherwise be claiming my attention,
and if you
they're
squint,
not as good as the graffiti.
and if you squint, all of our overpasses look like mountains. So there you go.
You have to really
Try to
squint.
remind
Really
me.
squint.
You have to really, really squint, which is not a good idea on the roads.
No.
Which
Yeah.
may also be
A lot of-
contributing to
that's
some
what
of
a
the
lot
peeves
people are
we'll
doing.
receive today.
Yeah, that's
So,
what
yeah.
everybody's doing today.
Okay, I do think Be Someone gets at something that is dear to the Houston soul. The idea that this is the city where you can, by gum, make yourself whatever you are meant to be. If
Yeah.
you work hard, you can do it.
Be someone annoying.
Yeah, well, I'm not.
Be
I'm not
someone
saying that-
agitating.
Yeah, but
I'm
you
not
also
saying your goal is necessarily worthy,
someone out
but
there
it's of
though,
your choosing.
Yeah.
and this has to get us back to your moral quandary. Someone
Yeah.
out there became motivated and said, "I will be someone," and they opened up a business and they had success and they wanted to advertise that business and they bought themselves a billboard and someone has painted over that advertisement. So
Well, they did not did they have a right to my attention as I'm driving by? I realize there's a legal right. There are different questions going on.
Just drive
here.
on 288 and be done with it.
Goes back. I still think that we should have our street artists repaint all of our roads.
I still see
will-
problems.
5 years in,
all
I'm
kinds of
still-
problems with that idea.
Yeah.
Let's dive into some of our listeners' peeves. Barry's in the Uptown area. Barry, what's your Houstonian pet peeve?
People sitting on the machines at the gym playing around on the phone while I'm waiting to do legs on leg day.
Oh,
What are you doing bringing a phone to the gym in the first place?
Well, you're trying
Go
to
sit
find
and
the
start-
perfect song for the
go sit
for
in
your
Starbucks-
for your
Go sit in
exercise.
Go sit in Starbucks and fill around the phone, okay? Not in my gym.
Yeah.
thanks for sharing, Barry, and sorry to hear that that's
Some
happening.
of us need the perfect soundtrack for leg day.
Is it that? Are they checking their heart rate, their steps, their what have you? There
Social
could be
media?
fitness
Work
app.
emails because they're supposed to be at work.
Uploading selfies so that people can see them working
Just
out.
That's a lot of it,
watching a
too.
movie.
Yeah.
Catching up on gemstones. There you go.
Finding ways to pretend they're at the gym, but they're not really at the gym. Yeah. Roberto's in the Museum District. Roberto, what's your Houstonian pet peeve?
Yeah, before I get to it, Craig, I want to ask you a question. Are you very emotionally involved in your team because you're placing a bet? Because if you're not placing a bet, then I admire you. You have an emotional commitment to your team because it's your team. So
Roberto, I'll answer your question. I did not place any bets. I don't really bet on anything. That said, I am the only person I know who has beaten Las Vegas. And the way I did it was my dad placed a bet on my behalf for the St. Louis Cardinals to win the World Series in 2011, and they did. And so I made some money off of that. But otherwise, I don't bet.
And
so
now you've quit while you're ahead.
I quit while I was ahead. How many can say that?
Yeah, I admire you because you got a pure motive for your team to win. Okay, now my pet peeve, and I've come up with a solution. My pet peeve, and it's serious: people not returning my calls. If I take the trouble to call you, please take the trouble to return the call. Now I solved it. This happened last week. I wanted to file a complaint against the particular personnel at a restaurant, and there was a card at that restaurant where the managing partner. Oh, great. I'll talk to her. So I left her a voicemail. This was about 10 days ago. And then last Saturday, I decided to do this. Call her again, but put it this way. Since I have not heard from you, I'd like to hear from the partners that I have met, and I'd like them to call me. There's two of them. Either one can call me. Thank you. 5 minutes later, she called back, and she says, I'm so sorry, I was out of town. And so we got to the issue at hand. So I solved my pet peeve, which is not returning calls.
Okay. Wow. Thanks for the call. Yeah, sometimes you have to threaten to elevate things to get anything done. It can backfire, too.
I want to know
though.
what restaurant this was.
Well,
we're not supposed to defame anybody.
No, yeah, we'll save that for when it happens to us personally, and we.
What does it rhyme with, Roberto? Do you remember that?
Oh, I think he's gone.
Yeah.
See if he could.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. I might have once upon a time made mention of a restaurant chain that had frustrated me because they kept the place so dark, and I didn't really want to defame them, so I just said that their name rhymed it with cheesesteak quackery, and that seemed to cover it. So.
For the ambiance.
That's right. Let's go next to Thomas in Montgomery. Thomas, what's your Houstonian pet peeve?
My usual complaint: drivers who insist that there's no room on the road for their cars and my bicycle. I'm visually impaired, and I use the bike to get around. And I encountered one of these nuts on Saturday. He yelled and screamed at me because I didn't signal. Well, I didn't signal because I was going straight ahead.
Yeah.
How do you signal to go straight ahead? And this nut was passing me in the right lane. I'm on this road that's split up into three lanes, left, right, and center. So I'm going straight ahead, and he yelled at me because I didn't signal. What is this problem? I mean, he's making a right turn. I'm going straight ahead. What signal do you use to go straight ahead? I don't understand that.
I don't know. Sorry to hear that you're continuing to have those challenges, and we appreciate you calling. And boy, I hope you're safe out there. You know, as he said, it's a usual complaint of his, but it's a complaint of everybody's. It's a frustration for everybody, and we could dive into all of that. But if you don't mind, I think what I want to do is I want to roll through a couple other traffic peeves, and maybe we can discuss them in the aggregate. So there's Annette, who is annoyed by people running red lights and worse at high speeds and overall bad driving that has led to high fatality rates and skyrocketing insurance rates. Brady writes, I can understand being proud of your big, loud engine, but it wakes us up when you start it in the middle of the night. Do you need that kind of power for city driving? And Richard is a longtime listener and first-time griper, and he writes, my wife and I live in Rosenberg, and when we come into Houston, we often take the 59 HOV express lanes in both directions. While I've always thought that the inside lane was the fast lane, we have discovered that the HOV is not the high-occupancy vehicle lane, but rather the very, very fast lane, so I guess the VVF lane. We drive a bit over the speed limit, so we are not necessarily obeying those limits, much like everyone else on 59. We've also noticed that the double lines and signs indicating do not cross the double lines are merely suggestions, as is the 2+ passengers in the vehicles. We are constantly having cars and trucks racing up our tail and usually zipping around us regardless of those lines. Often there is only one person in that vehicle. We like to slow down to the actual speed limit just to share our irritation with them, with their irritation with us. He also adds, because you are all famous radio personalities, I know that you will all be able to resolve this issue and bring sanity to at least one highway. My thanks, and keep up the good work.
Let us wave our gripey
Put it on
wand.
the list. Yes.
Yeah.
Solve it. You have 30 seconds. Go.
So are some of those like one-person people in the HOV lane like paying extra to drive there? Is that what's going on with that? Not
necessarily. It depends, because we do have some toll lanes where one lane is HOV and one is Easy Tag. Sometimes they are both Easy Tag, and it varies by time and day and so forth. So it depends.
I don't know that one.
Yeah. Well, let's see. The Katy Freeway.
Yeah.
They'll make adjustments according to the time of day and day of the week. But in some stretches, suddenly what was an Easy Tag toll lane becomes HOV only. And in some cases, those are really not monitored in a particular way.
Well, the city's so busy now, too, that anything like an HOV lane or some sort of managed lane doesn't even matter anymore because everybody's just everywhere. So there's no need for it.
You can fly in the HOV lanes,
for
Craig.
sure.
I love them.
I used to love the 288 tollway.
Sometimes. But there are also times when you will find yourself in that toll lane and asking yourself, why am I paying extra to go slower?
West Park is that way. West Park is that way for me. I do not like West Park. I have to use that a lot to go to clients' places. And that is just murder. I do not like that.
All right, but again, Richard wanted a solution.
Okay,
in particular
solutions.
for 59.
Stay home.
Helicopter.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there are two.
We have plenty of high rises, plenty of parking garages and parking lots. We can just fly everywhere.
That's an interesting thought. A dangerous and shocking and horrifying thought, but yes. We are fielding your Houstonian pet peeves. You can call or text 713-440-8870. You can email us at talk@houstonmatters.org. More of our group moan session and more from our guests, Lisa Gray and Craig Lavati, is ahead as Houston Matters continues.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. We're in the midst of another round of Houstonian Pet Peeves with Lisa Gray, Craig Lavati, and you at 713-440-8870 or talk@houstonmatters.org. A reminder about the ground rules: don't defame anyone, no name calling, no swearing, otherwise bring it. Sarah writes, here's what I find intolerable: the grammatically incorrect I could care less. The phrase for accurate meaning is I could not care less, meaning there is nothing I care about less than this issue. By using the incorrect common nomenclature, people are saying that they actually do care about the issue. Ugh, she writes. Ugh, U-G-H, capitalized with an exclamation point.
Oh, that is infuriating.
You know what else is really frustrating?
Yeah.
Is when
Let's
somebody's
forget to
phone
turn off
goes
their
off in a
fingers.
studio after they're reminded repeatedly to silence their cell phones.
Speaking of that, it happened at yoga a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody, like, they answered the phone.
Ooh.
And, like, started to have a conversation.
Oh, that
And they didn't
seems
start the
very
conversation
wrong.
with, I'm in yoga right now. They were like, oh, all right, cool. Awesome. Great. All right, cool. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
They just,
In the middle of yoga.
that just seems
I know
wrong.
that's a champagne problem for a lot of people.
Unless it is that new form of cell phone yoga that I've heard so much about. You've heard of, goat yoga and screaming yoga and laughing yoga. Well, now we have cell phone yoga.
Yeah, no, it was pretty rough.
Let's go next to Joseph in Tomball. Joseph, what's your Houstonian pet peeve?
Oh, man. Homeless people. I would love to family members take care of their family when they have that schizophrenia or something or drug problems. Saturday, I drive for a living, but Saturday, I almost bumped into somebody on the highway. It was dark. He had a dark clothes with a sign on him, and it's getting worse.
All right. We appreciate the call. Let's talk about it. I mean, on the one hand, of course, you feel terrible for anybody that finds themselves on the street. And on the other hand, it is very frustrating and concerning that you have people in the middle of the street, some not obeying traffic laws, and they're seeking assistance car by car, and it seems very dangerous and very risky.
Yeah, I mean, this one's bigger than a gripe. It's really hard to crack jokes about it.
Well, I'm not asking to crack
Oh, thank
joke
God.
necessarily in this case.
I'm going to flunk out on that one, Craig.
I understand. Yeah. Let's go next to John in West Houston. John, what's your Houstonian pet peeve?
Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller, and happy Cinco de Mayo. My pet peeve is
Cinco de
turn
Mayo.
signals. Nobody seems to use them on the freeway, on the expressway, everywhere. It's insane that people are going across 3 lanes of traffic without a turn signal.
Yes, indeed.
So.
And in particular, because we do have so many highways that are so many lanes, some of us have to move 4 or 5 one way while somebody's trying to move 4 or 5 the other way. And if
Some of us are on our phones, too. And it's just like,
You're doing yoga on your
That's
phone?
exactly.
trying.
You should not be doing yoga on the phone in your
trying to-
car.
I
That's
mean,
too much.
It's a busy city.
Yeah. But no, that is a fair gripe and a frustrating one for sure. Stuart is in Houston. Stuart, what's your Houstonian pet peeve?
Now, this one might surprise you, so just hold on for a second.
All
I cannot believe this thing about more police officers. This place is inundated with police officers sitting on the streets, waiting to give you a ticket. Over here on the southwest side, I see police officers up and down the southwest side streets. And I'm saying, we don't need more police officers. We need more services, like fixing these streets with these potholes. Spend that money wisely. That's it.
All right. Thanks for the call. This, of course, takes us back to our first discussion on today's show. And I guess we'll learn more about what the mayor is proposing when he unveils his proposed budget tomorrow. But he did lay out what this new police union contract calls for. And so, there are a lot of ways to interpret the concept of public safety and what priorities make sense and what don't.
I don't usually think of city budgets as being like must-see TV kind of stuff. It's not that exciting normally, but this one looks like it's going to be.
Yeah.
We're really talking about what the city's going to be.
Well, and I mean, on the one hand, things are a little, like, slightly less dire for next fiscal year because of a couple of things we pointed out that reduced the pending deficit from about $330 million down to $200 million. $200 million is still a lot.
Yeah.
But the hard part that we're all waiting to see squared is how do you increase substantially the budget for police while at the same time balancing said budget for not just next year, but laying the groundwork for future years.
Well, the next year, too, we have World Cup coming.
Right.
So there's just going to be just a whole other just gamut of problems.
And need, as it turns out,
exactly.
for more security.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
so, I mean, it all comes, what I keep coming back to is when you talk with 10 people, they will come up with 10 different priorities, and all of them could be right. And
Right.
we just don't have enough money to go around for all of it.
Yeah. Oh boy, democracy, man, that's rough.
One solution might be toll road fees, but it also might be a peeve of Sully's from Sharpstown. Sully, go ahead.
Well, my peeve is obviously toll roads. We were told when Beltway 8 was built, maybe late 70s, early 80s, that they'd collect a toll on it until it was paid for, then they'd stop. That hasn't happened. And every freeway or piece of high traffic road that has been built since then has been a toll road. From the West Park to the Hardy Toll Road to 99, all they do is they don't build freeways anymore. They just build tollways. And it's a way of separating, making life easier for people who are well banked and making life harder for people who are on the lower end. They could build a few more freeways where they could finally quit charging us to use, maybe it's not much per section, but they keep on cutting it up into smaller and smaller pieces, and you pay more and more and more.
All right. Thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
It's like a paywall for driving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Click to find out.
But I also am struck by the first thing he said, which was, we were told.
Yeah.
How many times in Houston's history were we told this will happen for this reason?
Well, didn't they backtrack and say, well, we still have to maintain the road, so that's why we still need your money? That's what they've told us.
Yeah.
Christopher's moaning about the incorrect use of as such to mean therefore. I believe the following three sentences are correct, but one is not equivalent to the other two. As such is a drop-in replacement for as a doctor, therefore is not, since replacing therefore with as such changes the meaning of the sentence entirely. All right, here's
This
the
is too
sentence.
early for this.
Just hang in there. Hang in there.
Okay.
Mary is a doctor. As a doctor, she is qualified to treat his injury. Mary is a doctor. As such, she is qualified to treat his injury. Mary is a doctor. Therefore, she is qualified to treat his injury. What do you think? Is that
so? Anyway, traffic is just way too bad in this city, and we just got to do something about it. And we have to have less people.
You just don't want to.
My brain doesn't work right now. It's just like no, but
You don't want to dive into a linguistic challenge.
No.
I'm usually on board with the linguistic peeves, but that one's not.
You're not sure on that one.
Bugging me.
All right.
No.
Sorry. I usually share them.
Like traffic up here, that below the surface.
Yeah. Well, this is why we talk about the small annoyances.
Yeah.
To someone else, that is an enormous frustration.
And the lonelier you are in your annoyance, the more annoying it is.
That's true.
Well, that's true.
This is why we share our gripes.
Yes.
Like I'm annoyed by folks that use Zens, and then they just spit them on the ground and then put them in the garbage.
But you share that
Yes.
widely, right?
Yeah.
Linguistically speaking, the one that really gets my goat is starting a sentence with so, and it's not actually following up on anything as in a therefore. It's just starting a sentence with so. It might be instead of or and I can accept that, but it frustrates me nonetheless.
Comma, blah, 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 blah.
Just any question that's asked and the answer starts with so. No, that's not how you start it.
Do we do that? Or is that why you're bringing that up?
No.
Because every time somebody brings up a linguistic peeve, I was like, oh, did I say that last time? Or did I say that earlier?
It's entirely possible
so I
that
get
you
really frustrated.
But that is a correct use of it. That is an appropriate use of it.
Darn it.
Yeah. Mark writes, I live in the Tomball Spring area. My pet peeve is how over time, since I lived here, all the nice spots of forest and fields are being bought to be covered in cement for some business we don't really need. Living here for about 15 years, one thing I loved about Tomball was passing the spots of nature that were maintained. Is it going to look like 1960 or congested South Houston pretty soon? Might as well live there.
Oh, that breaks my heart. There is something about watching whatever the outer fringe of Houston is turn into
the rest of Houston?
Middling, yeah. Strip Mall Center, Access Road.
Well, the
blandness.
economy's failing, so maybe it won't happen that much. So, there you go.
Look at you looking on the bright side.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, a bad economy, maybe we won't, be developing so much anymore.
Kelly says yes about tollways. The tollways are a paywall, so people with more disposable income can get around town better than those that don't have the income.
But even then, you're not getting around that much better. I don't feel any sort of sense of superiority when I'm on a tollway.
That's entirely up to you.
Unless
Then
I
why
should
are you
be.
paying for it?
Because it's fun sometimes. I used to love the 288 tollway, like leaving my parents' place in Pearland to go up to town, but then when I realized it was like $20 like one way, I was like, oh.
Ew.
Well, that's not cool.
Here's what you do. You come up with your own personalized tollway playlist.
Yes.
And you play that when you get onto the tollway. It's songs
like
about
money
being
for nothing,
being superior to everyone else. I'm better than you. All about the Benjamins. I don't know.
Some Wagner.
You
Throw in
work.
some Wagner.
Oh, Lord!
Wow. Wow.
I can't in good conscience have us end on Wagner. I just can't do it.
No.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Unless we were talking about the Kilda-Wabbit song, in which case I'm fine with it. And that's all I will ever call it. As always, I hope you found this cathartic, whether you shared a peeve with us or not. If there is something on your mind that simply cannot wait until the next time we do this, you can email it to us now or anytime at talk@houstonmatters.org. You can also text us at 713-440-8870. Craig Lavati, Lisa Gray, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Be good.
Still to come, the Rockets season is over. We recap last night's Game 7 loss against the Warriors and the season and look ahead to the next year as Houston Matters continues. The Houston Rockets season came to an end last night as the Golden State Warriors defeated the Rockets decisively 103-89 in Game 7 of their first-round NBA playoff series. Let's discuss the game, the series, the season, and the offseason ahead now with Houston Press writer and Believe in Astros podcast co-host Jeff Balke. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Craig.
So much of this series hinged on the Rockets slowing the Warriors' offense but struggling to drain shots themselves. It would seem that's what played out in Game 7 as well. The only real change that I could see was who led the way for the Warriors. Buddy Hield had a night, draining 9 3-pointers and scoring 33 points overall. Where did that come from?
Well, Buddy Hield's a very good shooter, and he's an example of the type of player the Rockets just simply don't have on their roster. The Golden State at their peak of this dynasty that they've been in, they were both a great defensive team and a great scoring team. Now, a lot of that had to do with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and guys like that, but that's part of what has to make up a roster. When you have a team like the Rockets who are top 3 in defense, but really bottom 3 in shooting. I mean, they were still up in the top 10 in offense simply because they out-rebounded everybody on the offensive glass and they didn't turn the ball over. But when you're 27th, 28th in field goal percentage, when you're dead last in free throw percentage, it's going to take a toll, especially in a series in the postseason against a veteran team like Golden State that knows how to exploit it.
How do you change that without changing the roster?
I'm not sure you can. There are certain guys on this team who will get better as shooters, but ultimately, as a team, you have to have at least one guy who is going to scare the other team when it comes to shooting the ball, particularly from outside. I think that's not going to be a player that's on this roster, as much as I hate to say it. I think that's probably going to have to come from the outside. Now, the Rockets will have plenty of options in terms of making deals this offseason, so we'll just have to see what their plans are. But I do think that I'm not certain that they're going to find a dead-eye shooter from within this team, given the fact that Dylan Brooks was the only player that shot better than 36% from 3 for the entire season.
Are those options out there, and do they create an environment where you might be sacrificing some defense in the goal of establishing more offense?
Well, I think the one that everybody has kind of speculated about and there's been talk about has been Devin Booker, who plays for Phoenix. Phoenix is probably going to go into rebuild mode. And the Rockets own Phoenix's next 3 first-round draft picks, or at least the right to swap with them. So for this year, for example, that pick is number 9. And so I could see a scenario where the Rockets trade away, maybe a player that will fill in that salary in exchange for a guy like Booker, as long as they're willing to give those pick swaps back to Phoenix. And quite frankly, it'd be fine for the Rockets to do that because they're not going to be drafting anytime soon in the top. I mean, they've been doing that the last 4 seasons. So I think Devin Booker's probably high on that list. And if you really want to go outside the box sort of fantasy trade, there's been a couple of people who've speculated that Giannis Antetokounmpo could be on the move this offseason. And if he were, the Rockets might be the one team that have the assets to be able to acquire him.
That would be transformative, to say the least.
Correct. And now, again, Giannis not a great shooter, which is,
right.
When you look at this, you're like, okay, Giannis, great scorer, not a great shooter. But, yeah, it would be transformative. I mean, obviously I have no knowledge of anything, but if you were speculating and you were willing to say, hey, we're going to give up a couple of first-round draft picks plus Jalen Green and Jabari Smith Jr. to get Giannis, that is a deal you make every day and twice on Sundays. I don't have any idea if they're going to do this or not. It would seem like a long shot to me. I do think the Devin Booker trade is interesting, though, because I don't think they'll have to give up that much in order to give them back what they've already gotten from Phoenix in order to get someone like Booker, who is a very, very good scorer.
Could a case be made that you should, in particular in light of a rebuild that seems to be going pretty well, never give up a top 10 draft pick, even if it means significant improvement the next season? That, look, you've been planning, developing long-term, stick to that plan.
I don't think so in this case, because now they will have, I guess they have 5 guys that are under the age of 24 years old. This is not the time to add more players who are young. They may have more than that, actually, when I think of Reed Sheppard. They have a lot of guys that are young. What they need is veteran depth. That's what they need more than anything else, especially on the offensive end of the floor. If you add another rookie, that just adds a couple more years of developing that player into the type of player that you hope they will be in a few years, which just adds to that time frame of development. I think right now they're really going to be in a win now mode, especially given the fact that they just were the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. So you don't want to go and add rookies and continue to sort of drift along at that pace. You need to make moves to be aggressive if you intend on competing for a championship, and I think that's what the Rockets are going to do.
Considering they were the number 2 seed in the West, had such a successful regular season campaign, how do you look at this season? Was it a success or a failure?
I think it was a tremendous success. I think that, look, when the Rockets went into the postseason, I think they were playing with house money. Regardless of what happened, as long as they didn't get blown out, which they didn't, this was a team that could look at what they had done, what they had accomplished. I mean, 2 seasons from the draft lottery, they were 500 last season. This season, the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. They've made a 24-game improvement in 2 years. That's a massive change. And I think you've seen real talent development from guys like Amen Thompson, and guys that I think are going to grow into the roles of, stars as they get a little bit older. But I think the fact that Ime Udoka and his staff were able to take this team from a kind of a really flailing around bunch of youngsters into one of the top 2 defensive teams in the NBA in just a couple of seasons, and the number 2 seed is really pretty remarkable, and they have a lot to be proud of.
Briefly, I want to mention the Astros. They dropped 2 of 3 over the weekend to the Chicago White Sox, the worst team in the American League. What gives?
Who knows, Craig? With this Astros team, it's a confounding group. They really are. They're a group that suddenly hits like crazy. You see Jake Myers almost hitting for the cycle, 2 home runs, a triple and double, and 13 total bases. And then you have a game where nobody can hit. And then you've got a game where, they'll give up multiple runs in the first inning, or all of a sudden the bullpen falls apart after it's been fantastic. They're a very difficult team to predict. I think their biggest problem, much like the Rockets, is offense. They still are trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lineup and how they're going to get guys to hit. Their pitching, both starting rotation and the bullpen's been very good. They just got to figure out how to hit the ball.
Jeff Balke writes for the Houston Press. He co-hosts the Believe in Astros podcast, and he joins us Mondays to talk over developments in the sports world. Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig.
And that'll do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, Mincho Jacob, and Laura Walker. Jared Carroll's our technical director. On tomorrow's show, the Trump administration wants to incentivize more women to have children due to falling birth rates. We learn how birth rates here compare to the rest of the country and why they're dropping overall. Also, while the president's announced and then pulled back some tariffs, others have stuck, especially when it comes to trade with China. And while those tariffs affect many industries with ties to lots of countries, the effects may be felt more by those businesses within Houston's Asian American communities. We discuss with Patrick Bowers from the board of Houston's Asian Chamber of Commerce. I'm Craig Cohen. Join us tomorrow for those and other Houston Matters.